Paradoxes. Paradoxes. The whole universe is a paradox
in and of itself. But it makes sense.
because our brains
Perceive it as a
paradox.
But the thing is,
If we separate how
our minds conceive of the universe
and separate that and look at the universe from a pure objective perspective, we can see it clearly that
the universe
the universe does not
exhibit
paradoxical properties. Take space-time, for example. One would argue
that going back in time
and changing the past
would be a paradox. It's the grandfather paradox. If I go back in time and kill my grandfather,
correct, then I wouldn't be born.
But if I wasn't born, then I wouldn't be able to kill my grandfather. That's the human perception of time. But honestly, how it
is that space-time continuum.
It's like a sheet of paper. Right? It wobbles, correct?
And layers upon layers is what space and time is. Space and time
is layered.
Now if I go back
in time, all I'm doing is
changing that layer
of space and time. I'm not actually killing my grandfather.
Correct? I'm just changing
a layer. And since space and time in the universe is layered
through vibrational
strings,
if I'm correct. Now if the string
theory is correct.
But if we just look at how things
operate, everything, we can
clearly see that everything vibrates. That would be applicable to space-time.
Because time is not separate from space. Space and time is the same.
That's why if I go...
If I had a twin, and put that twin on an airplane, and myself at the ground, and he was traveling at 0.99% the speed of light.
He will be younger than me. He will be much younger than me. And even if we have a
synchronized clocks, I gave one to him and I gave one to myself.
You can clearly see that his clock, even though it's
synchronized with mine,
have
experienced time dilation.
Now, why is that?
Because as I said, space and time.
Time
more correctly,
is layers upon layers. It's like a physical phenomenon,
even though it isn't physical in a
practical sense.
Right? It's not physical.
Like this on my hand.
Right? You can really touch it. You can interact with it, but you cannot touch it directly. You will need
advanced technological
instruments in order to touch it.
And since my existence
is part of this layered space-time continuum phenomena, I would argue that going back in time does not create paradoxes. Intuitively,
through intuition, I would see it as a paradox. But since I'm using my
three-dimensional brain
and three-dimensional thinking, I cannot conceive of a reality
where I will go back in time and kill my grandfather. You can
even argue that
if I go back in time and kill my grandfather, all I'm doing is
separating
the universe
at that point in time
in two different parts, right?
But even if that's not the case,
it still makes sense because All I'm doing is poking at the layers of the universe.
Now, my grandfather,
Belongs to it
a layer which was different then,
than it is now. And if I interact with that layer, I'm not really changing anything about my own layer
because the layers are different.
because
Space-time is never the same.
same. It's not a static continuum. It's
A ever-changing phenomenon.
everything is changing in this universe.
Nothing stays the
The
same.
same. It can go from one state to another state and back to the previous state, to a familiar state.
But it's still never the same state.
Like, take a fundamental metal, a fundamental particle, or let's take gold for example. How the electrons are moving, and
What
vibration
the atom is vibrating at. During a particular point in time, let's
say 10 o'clock yesterday, I have a gold atom, a single gold atom,
now the electrons
flow around it correctly. That's our interpretation of an atom.
we can see at 10 o'clock
See,
if we didn't have to use photons,
imagine we didn't have to use photons, light, to be able to
detect and measure atoms. Imagine
we had a device that did not
was not bound
to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
if there was no uncertainty.
Principle at play here.
Let's just have a thought experiment.
If
Now the uncertainty
principle will
not be of issue. We could see at a point in time, 10 o'clock,
yesterday, that the atom, the neutrons, the protons, and electrons were vibrating at certain frequency.
and since it's a single thing, entity, we can go even deeper. What does protons?
What are protons made of? You can Google that actually.
What are
Protons made of?
a proton? Correct? Or a composite particle.
Four quarks, and one antiquark called a pentaquark. Is a likely composite particle.
And it is not necessarily
That these four quarks and antiquark that is likely to be the
stuff that makes a proton
proton is vibrating at the same frequency
as the proton.
as the atom, which is the neutron and proton and electrons.
Now we can go on and on and on.
What are quarks made of, and so on. It will be an endless backwards regression.
We can see at point in time,
It will never be the same.
because if we take each individual part,
The atom, the electrons, the proton, the neutron, the
four quarks, and
one antiquark that makes the proton, the pentaquark, all vibrate not exactly the same.
because if they were vibrating
At the same frequency,
exactly the
the same frequency.
then there will be no
Change, correct?
They need to vibrate differently.
In order to make change.
That's how the universe
Work, nothing is static. We know that nothing is static. Therefore, we can see at 10 o'clock yesterday,
when all of these
components were vibrating at certain frequencies.
we could never
Get back to that initial state.
it's not that the state
In of itself is destroyed or even gone. It's just a snapshot of
time and space
that we
can never access anymore.
We have a snapshot. That's it.
It makes perfect sense because as
I've said, the universe is not static.
thermodynamics
Quantum mechanics never states that everything is static. It's quite opposite. Everything changes.
Therefore, today at 10 o'clock, the vibrations
Aren't the same as they were yesterday. Now, brains can vibrate at a certain frequency.
but it's not always the same.
It's not static.
You can vibrate at certain
Frequencies, but you cannot stay
at the same frequency day in, day out.
24/7, 365 days a year, the rest of your life. Well, it would make
No sense. You go up and down
between frequencies.
at a certain point.
The frequency changes.
It must change. Otherwise, it would
Break the fundamental laws of nature. Therefore, I say with certainty that if I would go back in time and change the past, I would not break the current past, because layers and vibrations make up this universe. And I'm
probably talking shit.
here.
I'm probably just spewing nonsense here, and nothing makes sense. It's bullshit, everything. Who knows? But you see, it's logical in a sense. Because, as I've said,
I'm changing that particular layer,
correct? You can change the
vibrations. You can interact with vibrating objects and change their vibration. That's
entirely possible.
that does not break.
The laws of physics or the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. Makes perfect sense. And so therefore,
I posit
this hypothesis that space-time
is
layered not through sheets necessarily, but as an object,
as
a multiple dimensional object,
it could be
see
conceived
it as anything. The shape doesn't really matter, right? But we know it's layered. It could be as simple as the universe is made up of
fingers.
everything in this universe is made up of fingers. My fingers
Create the universe. My fingers
is the universe. That could be a possible thing. Doesn't matter.
what the shape is.
Everything in this universe is made up of these bubbles.
Bubbles that are layered and stacked on top of each other.
Who cares, really? All I know is
Space-time behaves like a
multiple dimensional
entity.
object. And therefore, we can change the past. We currently do not have the particular
Technology for that. I can see that clearly.
clearly. But who knows? Somewhere out there,
There is a multiple dimensional entity that can interact with time.
yeah, what would happen to me if I killed my grandfather? Since everything is in layers, correct? And it will be a cascading effect, almost instantaneously. The moment I kill my
Grandfather, it would be
logical that at the moment I kill my grandfather,
I will kill myself.
there would be a possible logical conclusion
That the
the moment I put my
my knife into his chest,
to his heart, I die as well. Because it goes full circle.
it's not like in those movies where I slowly fade out of existence.
Gone.
Just like that.
Gone.
Not fading out of existence.
Since my vibrational state
State is dependent upon his vibrational state.
it would make perfect sense, since everything is in layers, that the layers which are connected through space and time
Change as well. Go down a layer, up a layer, maybe they turn around. Who knows how space and time is constructed?
it would be certain that since
Since my grandfather belonged to a certain layer, and I'm part of that layer. If I change the beginning of that layer
the layer will be gone.
in an instant,
Inconceivably fast. It would be so fast that
there will be no instruments
capable of detecting this change. It's like you turn your head around
and then
turn it back.
and then everything is just gone. You don't even see it in the back of your
My glasses. I
wouldn't be able to perceive it. Light wouldn't be able to perceive it.
light.
Wouldn't suddenly, photons bounce at the object, bounce back, and then it's gone. No.
The photon
Didn't bounce at the object to begin with because it never existed.
So the object, since it didn't exist to begin with, the photon would never have anything
To bounce at to begin with.
That's why
It's so instantaneous.
it's faster than
Instantaneously.
it's faster than anything.
You can even imagine.
That's why I think
If we go as more spiritual,
path here and suggest that
once you die, you're reincarnated.
it would make sense that you can actually choose which time you are born in. Like the Emerald Tablets,
Tell us. Is
that when you go to the hall of
of amenity.
you can choose your incarnation and where, at a particular point in time, a place
You want to
be incarnated to. I mean, all of these philosophies around the world that
covers the topic of incarnation or reincarnation.
tell us about not only are you capable
Of choosing what place you want to,
of reincarnate to, but also
what point in time you want to reincarnate in.
so that's my take on it. That's my take on it. Probably way over
My head, way over my knowledge capacity, way over my current capacity of
grasping these
mathematically
physically complex ideas. But who knows, I might be onto something. That is for the rest of the world to decide. That's no.
that is for reality to decide.
That is for reality to decide. So in conclusion, I would be able to kill my grandfather if I went back in time.